So, check this out, people. Today I want to talk about toxic masculinity, right? Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because back home in the US, there's always talk about this toxic masculinity, right? And it's always by these women who, for some reason, seem to have a problem with men who are masculine, right? And when I say men who are masculine, I mean men who are not soft, soy boys, right? Who are not sissies, who are not always crying and whining about life, and who are not always complaining about the government and how we don't get enough of this, we don't get enough of that, right? Because it seems like this nonsense about toxic masculinity that's being talked about back home in the US is more political than a reality, right? Because if you think about it, these women who talk about toxic masculinity, because it's the women who are doing this, right? They're trying to feminize men, right? And at the same time, while talking about masculine, or rather toxic masculinity, they're trying to masculinize women, if that's even a word, right? But they're trying to make women masculine and they're trying to make men feminine, which is ridiculous, right? Because if you're talking about toxic masculinity, what's the difference between a toxic man who's masculine, right, and a toxic woman who's masculine? Because remember, those same people who are talking about men who are toxic are trying to make women masculine, right? And so if you ask yourself, what exactly do these people mean by toxic masculinity? Because no one knows, no one can really explain what that means, right? It's just nonsense that these people make up. Because the ones who talk about toxic masculinity are the women. And if you think about this, men and ladies also, right? Because it's the women who have to use the common sense here, all right? When a woman walks into the office, right, at work, it's not the men who look at her up and down to see what she's wearing. It's not the men who look at her shoes and comment on her shoes or her hair or her makeup in a negative or nasty way. The ones who do that are women. It's women who attack other women. It's women who mock, laugh at, disrespect, or talk behind other women's backs when a woman shows up in a way that is not appropriate for other women, right? Because men could care less about what a woman wears. When a woman dresses up to go to work, you ask her, why are you getting dressed like that? Who are you doing this for? Who are you trying to impress? She's gonna say, I'm not trying to impress anybody. Because according to her, she's not trying to impress men. She might be in a relationship, right? Most of the time when a woman dresses up nice, she's just trying to impress other women. Because it's the women who are going to laugh at her. It's the women who are going to talk about her hair. It's the women who are going to talk about her dress, her jeans, her shoes, her bracelets, her necklaces, or whatever it is she's wearing, right? So how is it that this subject about toxic masculinity seems to be coming up back home in the US? Now, a lot of women have backed off from that because with time and arguments, they're starting to understand that that's just stupid, that that's just nonsense, right? Trying to feminize your son by giving him a little girl's toy just so that you can prove a point, right? And then say, oh, my son can play with any toy he wants. I don't tell him what to play with. If you don't tell your son what to play with, why do you buy him dolls for girls? Why do you try to feminize him, right? Because if you leave a little boy alone, right, and you put a doll in front of him, and you put a toy car in front of him, he's going to go with the toy car. That's just the way it is, man. You can try to deny it, you can try to pretend that that's not true, but the fact is that boys and girls are built differently, right? So what's happening back home in the US is that a lot of mothers, single mothers, who have no concept of what it means to be a man are the ones who are feminizing the boys, right? And a lot of the times, even when there's a man in the house, right, they try to demasculinize the man who's the head of household, right, and try to put him on a guilt trip and try to make him feel like if being masculine is bad, right? As if though it's not men who fight the wars. It's not the man who goes hunting. It's not the man whose job it is to take care of the family. Now, a woman might argue with this and say, oh, I'm a strong, independent woman. But yet she wants a man to pay the bills, right? To pay the rent, to take care of her, to buy her fancy car, to buy her whatever she wants, but yet she's a strong, independent woman. But she wants a man who is just as strong, if not stronger than her, right? Because if she gets a man who's feminine, softer than she is, this man is not going to be able to do the things that she's looking for in a real man. So this toxic masculinity nonsense is something that's being used to feminize our boys, right? So going back to the women, right? They are the ones that are more aggressive towards other women. Now, women might say, yeah, but most attacks in the world that women experience, the abuse in relationship, is a man against a woman. They're trying to make it sound like women are just being attacked by men, right? Because men are masculine and they're toxic, and this is why men abuse women. But what they don't tell you is that a man also abuses other men and also abuses children and animals. That's just the way it is. And it's not just men, right? It's not like a man is targeting a woman and saying, hey, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to mistreat you, right? Because the fact is that in human nature, especially a man's nature, if a man is aggressive, he's going to be aggressive with everybody. If he has a dog, he's going to be aggressive towards his dog. He's going to be aggressive towards his children. He's going to be aggressive towards his wife, his neighbors. It doesn't matter who it is. It has nothing to do with toxic masculinity. Because there are women who are worse than men. I mean, you can just go on YouTube, you can go on Facebook, and you're going to see all of these women that they call Karens, right? Who bitch and complain about everything. They don't like their sandwich because the guy who brought a sandwich cut it the wrong way. And now they're creating a scene, right? It's all nonsense, right? And so, in order for a man to be toxic, ask a woman, what exactly do you mean by toxic masculinity? What makes masculinity toxic, right? What makes it toxic? And what makes a woman, what makes feminine toxic, femininity toxic, right? Because again, going back to you ladies, it's you guys who attack other women. It's you guys who, when a woman walks into the office, there's gossip between you guys. When a woman comes home from the office, she's not complaining about the guy who talked about her shoes. She's complaining about her co-worker who said this about her, said that about her. It's always some bull with these women, right? But yet they try to blame everything on a man. Everything on a man. If a man is on the bus, on the train, and he offers the lady his seat, now he's a male chauvinist. Now he's a misogynist, right? Because she's a lady and she's just as equal as he is. So why is he offering her his seat when she could just stand? How dare you? Because women actually get offended when a man holds the door open for her. I've seen women get pissed off at a man because he held the door open for her. I can hold my own door. And then she's talking about toxic masculinity when she's the toxic one, because if I'm a man and I see another man walking behind me and I'm in front and I walk through the door, I'm going to hold the door open for that guy. It's not because he's a lady, it's because I went through the door first. And the problem with women is that they don't want to be women. They want to bitch and complain and accuse men for everything they do, everything we do, and call it toxic. I'm going to give you a perfect example of what it means to be a real man, right? Here in the Philippines, when a woman walks onto the bus, you see this all the time. A woman walks onto the bus, 8 out of 10 times, a man will get up and have her take his seat. And she will gladly take his seat, gladly, because she's allowing this man to be a man, and she's allowing herself to be a feminine woman, a classy woman who is allowing a man to be a gentleman, right? Because you women back home in the US want to talk about toxic masculinity, but when a man is good to you, you bitch and complain that you could do it by yourself, that you could do it for yourself. So which is it? Which is it? You just want a man to put on a dress, right? And pretend he's a woman. You can't just let a man be. You can't let a man be good to you. You can't let a man be bad to you, right? Because if he's bad to you, he's toxic. If he's good to you, you don't need him because you're strong and independent. This is why you're strong and independent ass is by yourself. Because you don't allow your men to be men to you. You treat your boys like little girls, and you treat your little girls like little boys, as if though a boy can't be a boy and a girl can't be a girl. If a girl can be a boy, according to you, and if a boy can be feminine, why not just let nature do what nature does, and let the girl be feminine and let the boy be masculine, right? But instead, we accuse good men of being bad, and then we accuse bad men who are probably just pissed off and annoyed by these women who don't allow them to be a man. Because I bet you $20, if a man walks through the door first and there's a woman behind him and he walks and he doesn't hold the door for her, she's gonna bitch and complain. If he holds the door for her, she's gonna bitch and complain anyway, because if he holds the door, I don't need you, I'm equal to you, I'm independent and strong, why are you holding the door open for me? And then if he doesn't hold the door open, oh, you're toxic, you're aggressive. Because men can't win when it comes to this subject, right? Because nature has given men testosterone, right? It's just the way it is. And they want to remove that chemical from a man and feminize him. So this is never going to make sense to me that women want to talk about toxic masculinity when they're the aggressive ones. They're the aggressor in the relationships. They're the aggressor when it comes to being in public. You can't treat a woman like a lady because that's offensive. God forbid if you should even call a woman a lady, because that's really offensive. Listen, guys, I ran out of space on my phone, and so this is the continuation from where I left off, right? So anyway, you really want to piss a woman off? Don't call her a bitch. Call her a lady and watch her flip out on you. Because women would rather call each other a bitch, right? I'm the badass bitch. I'm the boss bitch, right? A woman would rather a man call her a bitch than to call her a lady. Because if you call a woman a lady and you're a man, now you're being toxic. Now you're being toxic. If you're offering her your seat on the bus, now you're being toxic. If you hold the door open for her, now you're being toxic. If you're not holding the door open for her, you're being toxic. If you don't offer her the seat, you're being toxic. It's always some bullshit with these women, right? Now, here in the Philippines, this is something that I really appreciate. When you get on the bus, you're going to see signs that say this: priority seating for women with children women who are pregnant, disabled, right, or elderly, they get priority, right? Because this country understands the value of their elders, their women, their children, and their disabled. Now, back home in the US, there is no priority seating. You might see that on the train sometimes, if you see that now, right? Because we're living in a day and age where everybody wants to be equal. God forbid that the pregnant woman should just be a pregnant woman who deserves to sit down. But no, she wants to be equal. They want equality. So stand your ass up. When a man doesn't offer her his seat, he's being toxic, right? But the fact is that you wanted equality, right? This is why back home in the US, there is no priority lane for the elderly. They do have a priority lane here for the elderly and disabled and pregnant women in the Philippines. And if you're standing on line and you're in front of the line and you're not disabled, an elderly woman could simply walk right in front of you. She doesn't even have to ask, and they will serve her first. A pregnant woman could step right in front of you and they'll serve her first, because that is how it's done in this country, right? And women back home in the US have lost their worth. They've lost their worth because they've given it up, right? No toxic masculinity took it from them. No man who's aggressive took it from them. They gave it away. They gave the right to have a man offer them his seat. They gave the right to have a man treat her like a lady. They lost the right that while they're walking with their husbands and she's holding the baby and carrying her backpack and carrying the grocery bag while the husband is smoking a cigarette, they lost the right to have her husband say, hey babe, let me get that bag off your back. Let me get those grocery bags. And at the same time, let me carry the baby so you can relax. This is why back home in the US, you see a man walking with his wife and she's doing all of the things I just mentioned. She's got the baby in one hand. She's got the groceries in another hand. She's got the backpack on her back, and her man, who isn't toxic, because God forbid that he should offer to take the bags from her, is simply smoking a cigarette because he's being demasculinized by his wife. He's being made to be a soy boy, a sissy, a punk who doesn't know what it means to be a man. So he's allowing his wife to do whatever she wants, including hustle by carrying bags, the baby, and backpacks while he's just chilling smoking a cigarette. Because God forbid that if he should offer to help her, that's going to cause an argument. That's going to cause a problem, right? It doesn't make any sense to me how women in this country appreciate men who offer them their seat, how the elderly appreciate the young people, that when they're getting off the bus, the young people reach out to help the elderly woman and they'll walk her from the bus onto the sidewalk. But back home, everybody wants to be equal, so everybody's afraid to help someone because they don't want to offend the lady by opening the door for her. They don't want to offend the elderly lady by offering to help her off the bus and walk her across the street, because everybody wants to be a man. It's funny how it's toxic to be a man, but women want to be more men than men. They want men to be soft and they want to be hard. This is why women are always saying, I'm a strong, independent woman. And then they want their man to be a soft man. Sit at home, watch the baby while she goes home to the office every day, and having to deal with the gossip from other women, the abuse from other women, right? And it's men who are toxic. This is a subject that I've always been annoyed by when it comes to women, when it comes to watching TV, the news, whether it be on social media or everywhere you look back home in the US, how men are being feminized and how men aren't being allowed to be men. I don't know if this is an agenda from politics, the government, because it doesn't make any sense to me how all of a sudden We go from a time when men were men, when boys were boys, when girls were girls, and when women were women, to a time where now it is offensive to be a man. It is offensive to hold the door open for a lady. It is offensive to offer her his seat. And God forbid that you should call a woman a lady. Because all of these things to these toxic, feminine women, actually they're not even feminine women, to these toxic, masculine women. Because these women are more men than most men back home in the US, right? And so if you try to be good to them, it's offensive. And then when they turn you into a monster, you're toxic. And that's the funny thing about women, right? Because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I'm not saying all women are like this, because a lot of women are not. I would say 80% of women are not like this. It's just the fact that you got this small percentage of women in television and media, right, that is trying to influence our children and trying to tell our men and our boys, our young boys, that it's not okay to be a man. That being feminine is better than being masculine, as if though being masculine means being angry, being hateful, and that it's toxic. Because there are men who are men and they know how to treat a woman, they know how to be a husband to their wives, to be a father to their children, and they know how to protect and be the rock for their family. And they're turning men today into these little sissies who don't know how to protect their own family, who can't stand up against an attacker and protect his wife or his children because he's so feminine and he's so feminized by his wife and by society, because these men have believed the nonsense that they've been sold. This is why this generation is the gayest and is the softest generation in the history of our country. And the only time you find real men who are not toxic, who know how to treat their wives, who know how to pay the bills, who know how to get up every day and go to work, who know what it means to be a father, a protector, a gentleman, who knows how to offer his seat, who knows how to take care of his wife. The only generation that's left is my generation. The generation that was born in the 60s and the 70s. But this generation that was born in the 90s and in the 200s, they are the softest, the gayest, and the most feminine men in the history of our country. And this is why our military has gone downhill. This is why the family structure has gone downhill, because instead of having a man and a woman in the household, we have two bitches in the household. You got a woman who's constantly bitching and complaining about men being toxic, about men being men. So she's looking for a sissy. She's looking for a man who's feminine. She's looking for a man that's going to allow her to take out the trash while he sits around and plays video games. And instead of allowing a man to be a man and have her place, her role in life, in a man's life, she wants to be the man. It's funny how being toxic, a toxic male, it's okay for a woman to be a toxic man, right? Because they're masculine. A lot of women back home are masculine. Listen, every time you walk down I remember when women used to dress like women, right? Now, back home in the US, you see women walking around with yoga pants and sweatshirts. They don't even know how to be ladies anymore. One thing I like about the Philippines and Asia is that when you see a woman, she looks like a woman. She smells like a woman. She dresses like a woman. The majority of women here wear skirts, dresses, shoes, blouses. Their hair's always made. They're always dressed up. Always. You don't see women in yoga pants. You rarely see women in shorts. And that's not to say that women don't wear shorts here, but you rarely see that. And you see them in jeans, but the majority of women wear dresses and skirts, especially in school. And so they know their place here. They know their role as a woman. And men know their role as men. As a matter of fact, here they don't they don't discriminate against gay young boys. One thing you're going to find if you've never been to Southeast Asia, whether the Philippines, whether Thailand, China, Japan, whatever, they don't tell boys how to grow up. Maybe individual families might do that, but they're not influenced by the television trying to tell them to be gay or to be soft for the boys and for the women to be masculine. Kids grow up here to be what they want to be. And when they're outside of school, if the boy is feminine and he wants to wear a dress and he wants to wear makeup, more power to him. But when he goes to school, he has to put on the same uniform that every other boy has to put on, and vice versa. And that's the role that they understand in this country is supposed to be played by each individual. A woman is a woman and a man is a man. And if a man wants to put on a dress, let him put it on his own time. But when you come to school correct. When you come to work correct. All this nonsense about people trying to push their agenda onto others by force, whether at school or at work, is ridiculous. And if people don't do it, they're being toxic. And so America's going down the drain when it comes to this nonsense, when it comes to raising our children and our family. They want to push this agenda about drag queens performing for our kindergarten children. That is the stupidest and the sickest thing I've ever heard. There was a time when pedophiles went to prison for things like that, but now they want to encourage it because these same women who talk about toxic masculinity are the ones that are creating an environment for our young boys to be feminized, to be abused, right? It's okay for them to be gay, but it's not okay for them to be a man. Because to them, being a man means it's toxic. As if though men can't just be men and be good men. As if though there aren't any good men in this world. And the ones that want our children to believe that is a small minority. But the problem is that because it's being pushed by a lot of government agencies, certain cities, it makes it look and feel like it's being pushed by a majority of people when in reality it isn't. This is a minority who are trying to take our children from us, who are trying to take our daughters from us, our sons from us, who are trying to take the little girl out of the girl and turn her into a boy, and who are trying to take the manhood out of a boy and turn him into a girl, as if though being a man is something bad. I've been a man all my life. I know how to treat a woman. I have 4 daughters, and I'm thankful to God that it was girls He gave me. They're sweet, they're feminine, and I put all of my daughters in boxing. I put them in boxing not because I wanted them to be masculine, but because I wanted them to be able to protect and defend themselves. My oldest daughter, the first time I bought her a doll when she was 9 months, because my daughter was already walking at 9 months and climbing out of the crib. I bought her a doll, and she took that doll as soon as I gave it to her and tossed it out of her crib. She didn't want it. I bought her a basketball instead. It wasn't because I was pushing her to be masculine. It was because that was what she preferred to do. And my daughter's married, and she's just as feminine as any other girl or any other woman out there. But she knows how to be strong. She knows how to fight if she has to fight. She knows how to protect herself. And if necessary, she can play basketball against other guys. Against guys. Right? Because there's nothing wrong with a little girl doing boy sports. When I was a boy, the boys and the girls played stickball together. We played tag together. There was no boys only games. Everybody played. Right? But we weren't trying to masculinize the women, and the women weren't trying to feminize the men. The boys played hopscotch with the girls. The girls played stickball with the guys. It didn't matter. It was a game. And the problem is that women don't allow men to be men and girls to be girls. And that's the issue that I've been having for a very long time. And this is one of the subjects that I hate talking about because YouTube leans towards this nonsense than they do what I'm talking about, right? Because if I say that a man should be a man and a woman should be a woman, I don't care if the man is gay and I don't care if the woman is a lesbian, all right? That's your business, that's your prerogative. What I'm saying is that if you're a man and you have the nature that draws a man to be a man, let him be. And if he wants to be gay, let him be. That's his problem. That's his issue. Whose balls he sucks is none of my business. I'm not interested. I don't walk around claiming that I'm the man, that I'm the stud, that I was just with a woman last night, parading it and showing it off to everybody. So I don't understand why these feminists, right, have to encourage men to be gay and at the same time to push that agenda on everyone else, because it's okay for them to say whose dick they sucked the last night, but it's not okay for me to talk about the woman I went down on last night, because if I do that, I'm being toxic. But if the man talks about whose balls he sucked last night, then he's being okay. That's the world we live in today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and have a good night.